Imagine being a service member so selfless that you are literally willing to run into fire to protect the lives of those you are charged with leading. Sergeant First Class Alwyn Cashe is that man. I am Mandatory Fun Day. This is Foregone Friday, and this is his story. Sergeant First Class Alwyn Cashe was a man who embodied the warrior ethos to his last breath. His heroism on the battlefield was so profound that fellow soldiers and lawmakers fought for years to ensure he received the Medal of Honor he so clearly deserved. Cashe's story is one of bravery, selflessness, and sacrifice, culminating in an act that would make him the first black service member of the Global War on Terror to be awarded the nation's highest military honor. Cashe was born on July 13, 1970 in Oviedo, Florida, a small town outside of Orlando. Growing up in a working-class family, Cashe experienced financial hardship, but he never let his circumstances define his future. He had a strong sense of duty shaped by his upbringing and values instilled in him by his family. He attended Oviedo High School, where he was known for his determination and leadership. A natural athlete, Cashe always pushed himself to be better, whether in academics or physical challenges. Shortly after graduating, he enlisted in the United States Army on July 18, 1989. Seeking not just a career, but an opportunity to challenge himself, serve his country, and build a better future. Initially, Cashe joined as a supply specialist, but he soon transitioned to infantry, 11 Bravo, a demanding and physically grueling role that he embraced with dedication. Infantry life required resilience, discipline, and an ability to lead under extreme conditions, all traits that Cashe quickly demonstrated. He knew that being in the infantry meant being at the tip of the spear, and he thrived in that role. That's where he wanted to be. His early assignments took him overseas. 2 years in Korea, where he gained experience in an operational environment, adapting to the intense training and strict discipline expected of forward deployed units. This assignment exposed him to life outside the United States, broadening his perspective on military service. He then spent 3 years at Fort Lewis, Washington, where he continued honing his skills in infantry tactics and leadership. He proved himself as a capable and motivated soldier. Fort Lewis was a key training ground, preparing him for future deployments. In 1993, Cashe reclassified to infantry, setting the stage for his frontline leadership. His decision to shift into combat arms showed his commitment to not just serving, but leading and being directly involved in the Army's toughest missions. He knew that being on the front lines was where he could make the most impact. Over the years, he took on more responsibilities. He was a squad leader at Fort Hood and Germany, now Fort Cavazos, where he trained young soldiers, mentoring them in small unit tactics and leadership, ensuring that they were combat ready. His ability to connect with and inspire his troops made him a respected leader. He was a drill sergeant at Fort Benning, a role he excelled in, shaping the next generation of warriors with his strict but fair approach to training. Many of the soldiers he trained would later deploy to combat, carrying with them the lessons Cashe had instilled. He was an operations NCO in Germany, where he played a key role in coordinating battlefield operations, learning strategic decision-making. His ability to think on his feet and adapt to fast-changing situations made him invaluable to his leadership. He was a platoon sergeant in the 3rd Infantry Division at Fort Benning. Here, he was responsible for leading a platoon of infantry soldiers, ensuring their combat readiness. His deployments were numerous. First in the Gulf War, his first experience in combat, where he quickly learned the reality of warfare in the harsh desert environment. He was in Operation Iraqi Freedom. He was part of the initial invasion, leading troops in the fast-paced, high-stakes combat of the early war. He and his fellow soldiers pushed deep into Iraq, facing enemy resistance as they secured objectives. Operation Iraqi Freedom 2005, this would be his final deployment, one that would forever etch his name into military history. The location was Samarra, Iraq. His unit was Alpha Company, 1st Battalion, 15th Infantry Regiment, 3rd Infantry Division. Cashe's Bradley fighting vehicle was struck by an improvised explosive device. Common but deadly tactic in Iraq. The explosion ignited fuel, engulfing the vehicle in flames and trapping 6 soldiers and an Iraqi interpreter inside. Despite being covered in fuel and engulfed in flames, Cashe ran into the fire. Without hesitation, he risked everything to save his men, disregarding his own safety. The intense heat and smoke made it nearly impossible to see, yet he pushed forward. One by one, he pulled his men out, suffering severe second and third degree burns, over 72% of his body in the process. Witnesses later described how Cashe's uniform literally burned away, yet he continued, ensuring no soldier was left behind. Even when others tried to pull him away, he insisted on going back. He then refused to be treated until all his men were safe. His pain had to have been unimaginable, yet he maintained focus, prioritizing his soldiers over himself. His actions ensured that others would live, even as his own condition deteriorated. Cashe was evacuated to Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio, Texas, where he fought for his life for 3 weeks. Despite his extensive injuries, he remained conscious and reportedly continued asking about the condition of his soldiers. On November 8, 2005, at age 35, Alwyn Cashe succumbed to his injuries. His sacrifice was not just an act of valor. It was the ultimate act of love and leadership. I'm now going to tell you what transpired in order for Sergeant First Class Cashe to receive the Medal of Honor. It was an exceptionally heavy lift involving numerous people within the United States government. And truth be told, I believe it is the single most unilateral, bipartisan act we may have ever seen in our history. This is now the story of the fight to upgrade Sergeant First Class Cashe's Silver Star to the Medal of Honor. Initially, Cashe was awarded the Silver Star, the military's third highest award for valor. However, those who knew what happened that night believed that wasn't enough. The extent of his heroism deserved the nation's highest military decoration. His battalion commander, Colonel Gary Brito, later realized the full extent of Cashe's actions and pushed the award upgrade. The process took years, facing bureaucratic hurdles and the difficulty of gathering witness testimonies. There were challenges. There was a lack of immediate witness statements. Many were wounded and evacuated. This delayed the upgrade process since first-hand accounts were crucial for reconsideration. There was a strict 5-year time limit for the Medal of Honor, recommendations which required an act of Congress to waiver. The campaign to upgrade his award gained momentum over the years, driven by fellow soldiers, military leaders, and lawmakers who recognized the full extent of his sacrifice. It became clear that Cashe's actions met every requirement for the Medal of Honor. On October 17, 2019, on the 14th anniversary of Cashe's heroic act, Congress members formally requested the upgrade. The request was led by Representative Dan Crenshaw, Representative Mike Waltz, and Representative Stephanie Murphy, all of whom had military backgrounds and understood the significance of Cashe's heroism. August 24, 2020, Secretary of Defense Mark Esper officially endorsed the Medal of Honor upgrade, a crucial step in the process. Secretary of Defense's recommendation was based on new witness testimonies and additional documentation that detailed the full extent of Cashe's injuries and actions that night. On September 22, 2020, the U.S. House of Representatives unanimously passed a bill that allowed Cashe to be awarded the Medal of Honor. This bill, H.R. 8276, waived the 5-year time limit that typically applies to the Medal of Honor nominations. November 10, 2020, the Senate passed the legislation, clearing the way for Cashe's long overdue recognition. The bipartisan support behind the effort was a testament to how widely respected Cashe's heroism was. On December 4, 2020, President Donald Trump signed the bill authorizing the upgrade. Cashe had finally received official approval for the Medal of Honor, but the journey was not yet over. The next step was the formal award ceremony. After years of advocacy, Cashe's family, friends, and fellow service members finally saw justice done. It was hoped that the award ceremony would take place quickly, but due to the transition of presidential administrations, it was delayed until after President Joe Biden took office. On December 16, 2021, at the White House, President Joe Biden presented the Medal of Honor to Cashe's widow, Tamara Cashe. In an emotional ceremony, Tamara accepted the award on behalf of her late husband, standing as a symbol of strength and resilience. This was a historic moment. Cashe became the first black service member of the global war on terror to receive the Medal of Honor. His award was a long overdue recognition of the sacrifices made by black soldiers throughout American history. As Tamara Cashe held the Medal of Honor in her hands, there was a deep sense of pride and sorrow in the room. Though her husband had not lived to receive it himself, his legacy was now permanently enshrined in military history. Alwyn Cashe was the definition of selfless service. He didn't hesitate. He didn't flinch. And he didn't put himself first. He embodied everything a leader should be, not just in military, but in life. He could have saved himself, but instead he chose to save his men. And that cost him his life. The Medal of Honor wasn't given to him, it was earned. And though it took time for the world to catch up and recognize that, his fellow soldiers always knew the truth. Alwyn Cashe was a hero. If you believe this story deserves to be heard, please like, comment, and share. I believe that Alwyn Cashe deserves to be remembered throughout history.